Hi, this is Emily of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hey, this is Jerry Strauss, host of Hollywood Happy Plays here on Public House Media. Thank you for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. And once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Hollywood Happy Plays, where we talk with and about all of your favorite names from the worlds of TV, movies, music, whatever entertains you. We are getting up close and personal with those people right here on HHP. A new show comes out every 2 weeks, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Hollywood Happy Place. Thank you again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
Abby Wambach has saved the USA's life in this World Cup. Hall, the runner, loose ball, it's good. Gonzaga, the slipper still fits.
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. He's in. Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady has his fifth.
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness. I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
The cheap seats.
And a happy Friday to everyone out there. My name is Matt Coyne alongside Jake Holmes. Jake, how you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic this morning. How are you, Matt?
I'm great. We had a few technical difficulties before we started off here, so we'll see how that bodes for our show this morning. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be a fun show. We have, of course, Jake, you know, we're going to be doing a stupid draft today. I mean, we have to be doing that. So I'm excited for that, and it's our Father's Day edition, so that'll be exciting and I think interesting. Also, we will have on this morning Baxter Colburn will be joining us, who obviously you all know is my former co-host, but he'll be joining us to talk a little World Cup with us later in the show. Be talking baseball. And it should be a fun morning for you all. Just a reminder before we get started, though, we are presented by Public House Media. You can listen to us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, anywhere you can get your podcasts pretty much. Visit us at thephmedia.com. Be sure to like Public House Media and the Cheap Seats on Facebook. And then, of course, we have our daily poll questions on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays after each show. Join us on Mondays with Christian and Jonathan, Wednesdays with Keith and Max, and then Fridays with Jake and myself. So, Jake, kind of in my opinion, a dull week in sports. I mean, it's kind of that time of the year where NBA's just getting finished up, NHL's just getting finished up, baseball's in that time where there's really nothing important going on. Football mini-camp starting to make its way, but kind of a dull week, right, Jake, in sports? This is probably not a fun time to be a sports fan.
Yeah, I mean, to be a hockey writer, it was pretty interesting because the NHL draft coming up and, free agency starting. But no, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's football in shorts. We aren't quite to the dog days of the MLB season, but still not too much going on, even though races are starting to come into shape. But yeah, I mean, you're completely right. NHL's over and the NBA's finally over, thank goodness. 'Cause that was just a brutal series to watch that ended just a few hours after our show aired last week, eh?
Yeah, it was a very Finals was just not I think where a lot of people were expecting. That's Warriors. And if you're all living under a rock, Warriors swept Cleveland. They won on Friday night, 108-85. Steph Curry and company takes 3 of the last 4. Jake, I mean, that's a dynasty over there. Is that, or do you define the Golden State Warriors as a dynasty?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've won 3 in 4 years, and to be honest, I think they're probably going to do it again next year. They're bringing everyone back. Why wouldn't they do it again next year? But the thing with Golden State that impresses me is it's not, and I don't mean to take a shot at them, it's not the Miami Heat of the early 2010s. You know,
yes,
I mean,
yeah.
They're a lot of them are homegrown except for Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green were all drafted by the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Even Brandon Bell, that rookie that made an impact this year, was drafted by them. So yeah, I do think that it's a dynasty. I think that they're the best, most talented basketball team that's ever been assembled. I mean, they won. Minus Durant, a couple years ago, they won 73 games. They've won 3 titles in 4 years. And to be honest with you, they're not done.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
When you mentioned the 73 game win season, that's I still remember watching that as Durant gets signed. I'm like, wait a second, you guys just won 73 games. How much more do you want? And it is amazing to see what they have done over there. To see them just absolutely dismantle Cleveland. Other than game 1, which Warriors still won by 10. None of those games were really competitive. I mean, I don't know, with the Cavaliers what was going on there, but it was not great to watch.
No, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't. It wasn't a great series to watch, and it's unfortunate because Cavalier fans. I mean, you get that far every year and against the same team, and you only beat them once.
Yeah.
And but LeBron James, he played that pretty much that entire series with a broken hand. He punched a whiteboard after game 1. Why wouldn't he? I would probably punch J.R. Smith, not the whiteboard, right? Yeah. After game 1. But yeah, I mean, speaking of LeBron, who's going to win the sweepstakes there? I mean, LeBron, he can opt out. I mean, he can be out of there if he wants to. They aren't building teams around him. They got rid of Kyrie Irving. They're not building teams around him. Be interesting to see who gets him. I mean, there's been talk about the Houston Rockets, Philadelphia 76ers, but the Los Angeles Lakers. Does he go over there with Lonzo and all that? I don't know how you feel about the whole situation, Matt.
Yeah, I was reading a few things this week saying that, and I think it's true. A lot of people are saying the city of Cleveland needs to do what they can to keep LeBron. I mean, the city of Cleveland needs him more than the Cavaliers need him. Does that make? I thought that made sense to me, with that saying, and I think that's true. I think that Cleveland needs to do what they absolutely needs to do what they can to keep him in that city. Obviously, that's his hometown. I think there's a chance that he stays. I know Houston is up there, Philadelphia is up there, New York is up there, Knicks, and both Los Angeles teams people have been talking about. I think one of those landing spots seems to be the biggest fit for him. I know Jonathan and Christian were talking about Jonathan's thinking he could go to Boston.
Yeah.
With he's thinking of this 3-way trade, and I think it's whatever team wants LeBron. LeBron will go where he wants pretty much, as long as the team is able to, make that happen for him. So, I think it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. But I was reading earlier this week. I don't know if you USA Today had a article talking about where he could land, and somebody said the NFL. Like legit, they said the NFL. They're like, he'll retire and go to the NFL for a few years and play tight end and then come back. And I was like, that would I would vote for that, to be honest with you. I think that'd be fun.
Well, Juju Smith-Schuster was on the campaign trail for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was sitting courtside at Cavs games wearing a LeBron Steeler jersey. I mean, honestly, I'll tell you, anyone could be back there and wanted him to play safety, and anybody would have been better than Mike Mitchell, to be honest with you, last year. So I would have taken it at a heartbeat.
They can hand his number over to him, so
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just put some duct tape over Mitchell.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah, so I think it'll be I think whatever team, this is a no-brainer, whatever team he goes to will, I think, go right to Golden State. Will be the competitor for Golden State. I think he'll stay in the East. I do think that. And the reason I think that is I think he wants to, I don't know why, I just feel like he's going to want another shot at Golden State with another team. So that's just what I think, but I think it'd be it'd be interesting for him to go into the West, but a lot of the teams out West are the teams that, are set up to bring him in. So
no, you're right. And I hope that he stays in the East just because I want to see LeBron in the finals. Mm-hmm. Because if he joins one of these teams out West, if he joins the if him and Paul George team up and go to the Lakers, which a lot of people think is going to happen.
Yeah.
They won't beat Golden State. They just won't beat Golden State. Golden State will still win, and then they'll probably play the Celtics in the finals. And the Celtics are going to be really nice. They'll have Kyrie and Gordon Hayward back next year. They'll be a really good team. But still, Golden State, man, they're a buzzsaw, and they're probably going to do it again. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. So. Other thing going on, the big news this week was United States, Canada, and Mexico getting the 2026 World Cup. And we're not going to go in depth with that. We're actually going to let Baxter take care of that whenever we come back from this break. Make sure you stay with Jake and myself here in the welcome back to the Cheap Seats. Matt Coyne alongside Jake Holmes, and I'm excited this morning, Jake. We're kind of switching roles this morning. Joining us right now is Baxter Colburn. Baxter, how you doing?
Hey guys, good morning to you both. Doing pretty well. Soccer is back. The World Cup is finally here after 4 years. So in my world, everything's just fine.
Well, of course, yeah, you're excited about that, but. So this is a little different. Jake and Baxter, you two are switching this. I guess we all kind of switched roles. I took Baxter's place, Jake took my place, and Baxter, you took Jake's place. So
I guess so.
Yeah, how fun is that? Nobody cares. Okay, I'll shut up. All right, so big announcement this past week, Baxter. We just touched on it briefly in quick headlines, but wanted to let you talk more in depth about United States, Mexico, and Canada hosting the 2026 World Cup. That's huge, isn't it, Baxter? Especially for U.S. hockey. See, me and Jake are U.S. soccer.
This is why soccer never gets talked about on the show, because you're like, yeah, hockey. I'm like, no, guys, no. There's other sports with international countries as well too. No, this is a big moment for soccer in North America as a whole. I need to get used to saying that because it's not just the United States. But I've seen the reaction on social media from fans. Some people are mad about it because they said, well, Morocco should have got it. Sure, if you're into corruption. But yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, good for you. People are also saying that the North American bid just paid more money to get it. So realistically, the legalese side of it, however much money was paid or wasn't paid and who got bribed and whatever, we don't fully know any of that. This is stuff that'll come out in years potentially, and that's unfortunate that we even have to have that conversation to lead into something like this. But realistically, North America is going to be doing the hosting. Most of the games are going to be played in the United States. Surprising omittance of host cities, Chicago and Minneapolis, both with beautiful venues. Neither of those were chosen for it, so some fans are a little surprised by that. So if I want to go to a World Cup game, I either need to go to Toronto or I need to go to Cincinnati. So we'll see, unless I happen to be in Florida, so I can go to Orlando or Miami. But either way, the reaction from folks that I've seen on social media, especially journalists that I know that live in some of those cities, have been just overwhelming because they're excited. They get to cover the greatest tournament in the history of all sports in their home city, or have the opportunity, because not a lot of journalists can travel to Russia or can travel to Qatar in 4 more years as well too. So this is in their backyard in a sense, and this is going to be a special moment for everyone involved.
So why would they pick a Cincinnati over Chicago or Minneapolis? I didn't know Cincinnati was one of the places.
Yeah, Cincinnati. Well, I believe there was 23 projected host cities, and obviously 16 got chosen for the games. I haven't found out where the final is going to be yet.
Green Bay.
Yeah, I've been a big component of saying that they should play friendlies at Lambeau Field, but nobody ever wants to get on board with that. The ground is far too precious, but we can have a Kenny Chesney concert there and not bat an eye. Whatever. Anyway, priorities, I guess. I don't know the official reasoning why Cincinnati. I think one reason is because they were given an MLS franchise recently. So because of that, they're obviously going to try to ride the wave 8 years down the line. That's going to be exciting because they'll be an established city by that point in terms of soccer. But on the other side of that, I don't know. I wonder if it was the Chicago bid maybe included Soldier Field. Maybe they didn't want to play at Soldier Field. I know a lot of international friendlies, the Copa America, the Gold Cup also have gotten played at Soldier Field. That's how I've gone to see a couple of games. The MLS All-Star game's been at Soldier Field. So Soldier Field in Chicago kind of goes hand in hand with international soccer. And then obviously what the Vikings have in their incredible venue as well too, would have been, I think, a really cool experience going to see a game, especially had like in Iceland, got to play a game in the Minnesota Dome. Every goal they score, they blow the big horn, something like, personally, but nobody thinks about that, in that situation.
Well,
but
they don't have you, Baxter, to think of.
I guess so. So if I need a job here, so let's get it moving here. I can get after that here in the next 8 years. Is start bring the World Cup to Minneapolis or Chicago. But Cincinnati still not that bad of a drive. They've got a really nice open stadium. It'll be a cool venue in the downtown area of Cincinnati. As cool as downtown Cincinnati is, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a bad place other than the Bengals. That's not terrible.
Right. If Andy Dalton will hopefully have lost his 8th straight playoff appearance by that point as well.
Let's move it. Let's go back 8 years to this year. Baxter, we talking about this year's World Cup. I mean, again, huge news for, like you said, North American soccer. But this year, what are some things for Jake and myself who are not avid soccer enthusiasts like yourself? What are some highlights that you see going into this year, some things to be looking out for?
Well, it's interesting too because oftentimes when you have such a big span between tournaments, we can relate this to the NBA and the NFL. Every year we know that the Patriots, as long as Tom Brady's going to be on the field, they're going to be contenders. Every year that LeBron is on the basketball court, whatever team, they're going to be contenders. You have 4 years in between, and it's interesting because this 4-year span, Germany, who won the World Cup 4 years ago, is still projected to be the favorite to win again. So that doesn't happen very often. You'll see these generational shifts oftentimes a lot, but what Germany did back in 2014 with such a young, talented, up-and-coming group of German players that are now stars all throughout the world is remarkable. And now here they are 4 years later, 4 years better, 4 years stronger, 4 years more experienced, and now have the opportunity to potentially repeat again. And nobody would bat an eye this time if they did it, because it'd be like, well, yeah, of course, Germany's playing exceptional soccer right now. The big storyline, of course, though, is whether or not Lionel Messi will win his World Cup ever. Argentina, they lost in the finals last year, of course, after Mario Götze scored in the 122nd minute. But where do you put an Argentina team with Messi? We have this conversation a lot in the soccer world. If you take the best player out, and even in the sports world too, Matt, you and I have had this conversation. If you take the best player out of the team, how good is the rest of the team regardless? If Aaron Rodgers is sitting for the Packers, we know how good the rest of the team is. If Ben Roethlisberger or whoever else is out, Sidney Crosby and company are out, how good is the rest of the squad without the star player on the team? And usually the answer is pretty coherent right off the bat. So, but in international soccer, because you have such talented players, Messi, at least for Argentina, Ronaldo for Portugal. Argentina's a little bit better in the sense that they should be just fine without Messi if he were to get hurt for some reason. But the converse side of that, and anyone that knows the soccer world will say, well, Baxter, Cristiano Ronaldo got hurt for Portugal in the 2016 Euros, but then they still won the European Championships without him, and him sitting on the bench, which was a shock among itself. So there's a lot of storylines. You could go in a lot of different directions, honestly, but the favorites this year are definitely Germany. You've got Argentina. France is another one as well, too. England, if they could pull it together. Brazil, of course, is always close to the top as well. And then Spain, who won in 2010, are finally starting to get their act back together, it seems, and they're getting projections to make a deep Final Four run as they can as well.
Great. So there was a few teams, obviously United States being one that didn't make it, but just from reading and watching the sports world, there's a few surprise teams that didn't make it into this year's tournament. What was your biggest surprise team that didn't make it?
Well, I think the biggest one for me personally was the United States not making it. Aside from that, though, you look at some of the other teams that didn't make it in the Netherlands. They've been a staple in the World Cup for many, many years, and them not making it is really, like we talk about, that generational shift. You look at how Germany has kind of been this young, they know when to cycle in the new talent, and Germany's done a great job of doing that, whereas the Netherlands, that last World Cup in 2014, they made a big run, but it's because they were running on the heels of a lot of their older high 20s, early 30 players at that point. So to see that shift all of a sudden and them then not be able to translate it over in qualifying is ultimately what it is. And is soccer, as much as you need the experience, you need to realize the game is getting faster and faster and faster and faster. So you need those younger players that are going to keep up and ultimately keep you in games down the stretch as well, too.
Great. Well, Baxter, thank you for joining us. Jake, do you have any questions for our soccer enthusiast before he heads off?
Well, of course, I want to know, of course, the favorites, the Germanys, the Brazils, like you mentioned, Argentina. Will Messi get his World Cup? Who's a dark horse? Who's somebody, that, you may not see coming up that's going to make a run?
It's funny because it's hard to call a team like Belgium a dark horse, but they're just absolutely loaded with talent. But Belgium could be an interesting play in this scenario, and this is a kind of an interesting fun fact. Belgium has brought the same roster to this World Cup as they did to the 2016 Euros and the 2014 World Cup as well, too. That doesn't happen in this international circle, so the fact that it has happened is very surprising. So I would keep an eye out on them. Colombia kind of came close this last go around, but other than that, really, I mean, who else can you really go on a limb and say, well, they have a chance? Mexico would be the only other team in my opinion. So Belgium and Mexico would be the only two teams that I would say, hey, keep an eye out for them. There's a possibility. Otherwise, yeah, would it be surprising if England won the World Cup? Yes, it would. Is it expected? Yes, but because they have such a terrible history of just crashing out of every international tournament they've been in for the last decade and a half, it would be a welcome surprise to those in the soccer landscape.
Well, hey, the Capitals did it, so maybe it's the trend right now,
Exactly, that is exactly right. And we were talking about this on another show recently, that it's good for international soccer when England is good, but they haven't been good in a long time, so that's why we've all fallen in love with the Messis and the Neymars and the Ronaldos. But especially if you're an American soccer fan in this odd situation where the U.S. isn't in the World Cup this year, who is most everybody's default second team to cheer for? It's England. So a lot of U.S. soccer team fans are going to be cheering for England. I'm not, because I go USA, Italy, and then Spain as my three because of either my culture and or just a lot of my friends and other extended family that I have in those countries. But England is another team that, of course, I enjoy watching. But it's interesting to watch now how many U.S. soccer fans are going to get behind England. But I think the joke is kind of on them, because if England crashes out, it's still going to be the same agony and defeat that they would have dealt with had the U.S. been in this tournament as well.
Yeah. Well, Baxter, thank you for all your input. Games start up to. I think there was one yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, but most of them start today.
Correct.
So, well, thank you for joining us. I'm sure almost all of our listeners know, but Baxter, where are some places we can follow you and get your input on the World Cup as we watch it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do obviously all of my stuff here through Public House Media. We do have a short-term special World Cup podcast here on Public House Media as well. It's called Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition. Myself and I believe it's 5 or 6 other hosts from literally around the world. We've got guys from Mexico, Peru, just all over the country. We have one guy that's actually in the brother of the Wednesday host, Max Walpoff. His brother Zach is in Russia.
Oh wow!
At some of the games, so we're getting some live insight from him as well too, which has been pretty remarkable as well. But being able to bring you that, we're on all the same platforms, obviously for Public House Media. But if you're on your podcast app, just search for Your Soccer Passport, and you should see the show pop up and subscribe and listen. All of our group previews are out, and now we'll have rapid reactions and recaps for the rest of the tournament moving forward.
Cool. Well, Baxter, thanks for joining us. You have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yeah, you're welcome. And join us again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there goes Baxter Colburn. Always a pleasure having him on. Having him, I guess the first time was our first guest. Me and Jake, join us. When we come back, we'll be talking about the MLB. Well, welcome back to the Cheap Seats. Matt Coyne alongside Jake Holmes. It was fun having Baxter on, Jake. Obviously I don't know too much about soccer, but that was interesting and some wealth of knowledge there in the soccer world.
Yeah, I love this. I love this tournament. I love the World Cup. It's really, I feel bad admitting this, but it's the once every 4 years I get really into soccer. This is all that's on my TV. I like how he said, if you're not rooting for the United States, you're normally rooting for England. It's normally whatever you're here. I always root for German teams. I always.
Yeah, I'm always for Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah, so. It's just fun how it can even bring back your ancestry and everything like that, with your rooting interest. So it's a really cool tournament, and I agree with him. I think it's the best tournament in all sports. I mean, once every 4 years, 48 countries get together and for one common goal, which is really neat. Yeah,
well, and that's how I feel. I mean, as you know, I played rugby for 6 years, and I don't know, maybe you don't know that I think we've talked about that, but I get excited about the Rugby World Cup. I think it's kind of obviously not nearly as big of a stage, but the every 4 years coming together in these teams from different nations, it's a neat feel. And here with the World Cup in soccer, I think it's a neat thing. It's cool to see, just like the Olympics almost, coming together as nations and this big tournament, and it'll be exciting to watch. But going into the baseball world, Jake and I have been trying to just every couple weeks go through the standings, keep you up to date, kind of tell you what our input of where the standings lie. Jake, we're going to start with the American League, and I think we started doing this show about a little over a month ago, and the Red Sox and Yankees were 1 game apart. And they're still 1 game apart. Boston at 47-22, Yankees at 43-20. How have the Yankees played such less games than the Red Sox?
Well, you know what? They've had a lot of rainouts. I know. My brother-in-law. I'm in D.C. right now, and my brother-in-law is so excited because the Yankees are here. He's a big Yankee fan. Okay. The Yankees are here once next week. They're here Monday, the 18th, for a rainout because they had a two-game series and one of them got rained out. Okay. So he's really excited. They've had a lot of rainouts, so that's how. I mean, 5 less games though. Oh my gosh, crazy.
Yeah, that's just So they are them and Boston just continue to just absolutely run away with this AL East. They're 14 games ahead of Tampa Bay, 27 ahead of Baltimore. Like, I know we're not crazy early in the season. We're approaching halfway, but that's just ridiculous to me. To be 27 games ahead this early in the season, that's just, I mean, they're just running away with this division. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's really, that's a combination of two teams being extraordinarily good and one team just being so bad. I mean, the Orioles are going to purge at the trade deadline. Machado's gone.
Yeah.
See what they can do with Chris Davis. I mean, I saw something I saw something where they're like, if you're going to take Machado, you better take Chris Davis too, because he's not producing anything, and he's got a big contract. Who knows how much longer he's going to be playing. But yeah, Orioles. Oh my gosh, they're so bad, and it's crazy to think that just 2 years ago, that the Orioles were really a legitimate contender to win the World Series, and with that crazy bullpen and just a lineup where everybody was smashing home runs. Granted, Camden Yards is a really small park, but still, I mean, they were just crushing the ball. It's just crazy, but in smaller markets, how much 2 years can really make a difference. We know that, we're Pirate fans.
Yeah. Well, that's it's your stars don't perform, and you don't have anybody else to lean back on. And speaking of stars for the Yankees, Gary Sanchez is in a huge slump right now. He's only hitting 190. He only has 12 home runs, Jake. But no, so he is only hitting 190. I know there's talks of sitting him. What do you think about that? And you think a player who's only as young as him, who's struggling like he is, do you think the answer is to sit him, or do you think the answer where do you think? Because I think that's a fine line. It could backfire. Sitting somebody young like that, I think.
Well, the thing is with Gary Sanchez, they have a little bit of depth there. I mean, they can go with Austin Romine, who's playing really well. I mean, he's got a bunch of plate appearances. He's hitting almost 350. So I mean, would it be worth it? I mean, I think they should do it. I mean, although Gary Sanchez is 25 years old, they got to take a look at it. I mean, he's only batting 190, but the thing is with the Yankees, it's amazing that they have such an integral piece of their lineup that's playing so badly, and they still got the best record in baseball. So it's just wild, what they could do just throughout the entire lineup, even though one of their really important pieces, especially from last year, is playing pretty terribly.
Yeah, I agree. So let's go down through here. Just continuing. My computer just froze, so that makes sense. Sorry about that. All right, so we're back on here. All right, so we talked about these. Going to the Central, Cleveland 4.5 games up over Detroit. That's kind of, I think everybody saw that. There's no really shocks in that division. Is there anything shocking you in that division, Jake, or is it kind of falling where you thought it would?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's fallen pretty cleanly, I think. For the first month and a half of the season, the Central was terrible. I mean, Cleveland led it. They were 4 or 5 games under 500. Yeah. Now, I mean, they're starting to pick it up. They've lost a few this week. But still, I mean, the Detroit Tigers, I expected them to be just terrible. They haven't done a great job of rebuilding. I mean, that was something that you really thought that they were going to do. They shipped off Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, David Price. A couple of years ago they had that 3-headed monster in their starting rotation. Miguel Cabrera just got hurt though, but he's aging.
Yep,
he's out for the year. But still, I mean, they've got really solid. They're getting solid contributions throughout a lot of the lineup. Nick Castellanos is having a good year. So I mean, Detroit, I mean, right now they're sitting at right around 4 or 5 games under 500, but I think eventually the Twins will probably overtake them for number 2 in that division. But no, I don't think anybody's going to touch the Indians. I mean, that roster's stacked, and Kluber's starting to pitch like a Cy Young winner again.
Yeah, so I tell you what, in the West, it is good to see. I don't know why. I've always enjoyed the Mariners. Since I was a little kid, when they had their 100-game season back in the 90s, and they were kind of that team who was good. They just could never, obviously with Griffey, and they could never get over the hump. To see them at 20 games over 500 this year, I don't know about you. Well, we've talked about this a little bit. Like, that is a huge shock to me, and I mean, that's just huge to see them. They're at half a game in front of Houston right now. Those two are kind of running away with the season. But is Seattle kind of a shocking team to you this year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially the fact that they've been doing this without Robinson Cano for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, Gene Segura, sorry, he's doing, he's having a great year. He's really been maybe the most surprising player in all of baseball this year. He's playing fantastic. Longtime Milwaukee Brewer. Been playing great baseball. And, to your point, I've always liked the Mariners too. Of course, like Ken Griffey Jr. had all that swagger, I mean, he was just so cool. And they had those awesome third jerseys, like the teal ones. They were so cool. And I've always liked the Mariners as well. I like watching them. But, I mean, ultimately, Houston, that division's so good because Houston's there too.
Yeah.
And Houston, the World Series champs, and we talk every week about their rotation. It just continues to be ridiculous. And Justin Verlander, I mean, he's really the front runner for the AL Cy Young right now. So, if you can... If it's too early to talk about that, I'm sorry. Too early in the season. If you feel that way. But he is. He's pitching great. And but yeah, how do you think, Matt? How do you think that's going to end out? Do you think Seattle's here to stay? I mean, it's a large enough sample size to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. That's earlier in the year, I wasn't sold on them, but like you said, it's a large enough sample size, I think, to say you don't get 20 games over 500 on a fluke. They are playing great baseball, 8-2 in their last 10. Houston 7-3 in their last 10, and they're on a 7-game winning streak. It's impressive what they're doing. I don't see why they're not here to stay. I think Houston does take this division over, but you have the LA Angels, I think, who are underperforming right now. They're 7 games out at 37-32. I don't see them, I don't see them staying where they're at. I think that they're going to end up getting into this division race as well. So, but we'll see. I mean, I think Houston, I've been a big fan of them all year with their pitching staff or their rotation. I mean, it's just very impressive to me, the way they're pitching. So I would love to see Seattle in the playoffs. I think that would be a good thing to see. But going over to National League East, it's like these, it's funny, Jake, I just realized it's like these two 90s powerhouse teams all of a sudden are coming up. Now you got Atlanta, competing in the East, which, 2 years ago, I actually thought Atlanta would. I thought Atlanta was going to start moving up about 2 years ago when they started making all those moves. But it took them 2 years. They are ahead of the Nationals right now by a game. Another team that's kind of shocking, but like I said, Jake, I thought one of these years they were going to click and start moving. So. This is the top 3 teams: Philadelphia 34-31, then Washington is in second. But Jake, Atlanta, another surprise team for you?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Atlanta. I didn't. The way I thought that division would go down is I thought the Nationals would win it by 10 games or something. Yeah. The Mets in number 2. Maybe Atlanta got 3. I thought the Phillies and Atlanta would, be battling it out. But I did not see the Atlanta Braves coming. And I think baseball is better when the Braves are good.
Yeah.
Just because of those teams in the 90s. But I mean, what they're doing is awesome. And the thing is their middle infield's so good with Ozzie Albies, or I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I always have a hard time with that. And Dansby Swanson, he's kind of proven, but he's still young. I'm looking at their roster right now. Second base, 21 years old. Dansby Swanson, 24 years old. Ender Inciarte, 27. Ronald Acuna, who's on the DL right now, but he's 20. They've got a really young lineup, and they're ahead of schedule, really, whenever you think about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm really, really excited about the Atlanta Braves, but ultimately, I think that it's going to be tough down the stretch with the Nationals, just because, I mean, Scherzer, Max Scherzer having to go against him every 5 days. Strasburg's pitching well, and they still got a stacked lineup offensively. So but yeah, what do you think? And also the Mets. I mean, what are the Mets doing? I mean, that's a good lineup too. Yeah. How are they 10 games out?
Yeah, and I agree with. It's funny when you say it that way, because like I said, I think it was like 2 years ago that Atlanta was making all those moves, and I thought that they were going to have a better team. But you have that's a great point with how young they are. It kind of they seem to be ahead of schedule, but I'm surprised with the Mets that just the dismal year they're having. But that's kind of what the Mets do. I think they surprise one way or the other. It seems like they're supposed to be good and they're bad. They're supposed to be bad and they're good. So we'll see how that plays out as we go throughout this year. But I agree. Washington, I don't see how Atlanta's going to keep up with them with that such a young team. But we'll see. I mean, we've had enough of a sample size that it seems like this isn't a fluke. But going into the Central, this is going to be painful for Jake and I. Milwaukee, just a game and a half over the Cubs. It seems like these two teams, like we've been saying, Jake, we've been saying every week, these two teams are going to kind of separate themselves. This division now is exactly where I envisioned it at the beginning of the year. I had Milwaukee, Chicago, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. It seems like Chicago and Milwaukee have definitely separated themselves from, starting to. St. Louis is 4 games out. I don't think they're going to stay in that race. And then the Pirates at 33 and 35, who are 8 games out. I don't want to talk too much about the Pirates because I'm going to get upset, but Jake, I think a lot of people saw Milwaukee, Chicago, Cubs. You think that's going to turn into a 2-team race here?
Yeah, I think in a way it already has, like you were saying. Yeah. I mean, I don't think St. Louis is. I think St. Louis is the third best team in that division, but I think that there is a void between them and the Cubs and the Brewers. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, of course, we know we've seen this all our entire lives, Matt. I mean. Yeah. There's no way the Pirates are there. I mean, right now, I mean, they're 2 or 3 games under 500, but they're treading water. But I mean, they're nothing more than an 81 team, you know. But I mean, bright spot is, I say it every week, I mean, Austin Meadows is continuing to play really well, and it's about time, because Austin Meadows, he's 23, he's young. But the thing is he was supposed to come up a few years ago and really be great. He was supposed to come up a few years ago, be an regular outfield, part of the outfield rotation, but he just couldn't stay healthy. And this kid can absolutely rip the ball, and I'm really excited about Austin Matthews. Of course, here we are, Pirate fans, excited about the future. We've heard that before, but yeah, you're right. I mean, Milwaukee and the Cubs, I mean, that's a 2-horse race right now, and really, I a lot of people thought the Cubs. I liked your pick of the Brewers. I think the Brewers are better than the Cubs, to be honest with you. Yeah,
and that's at the beginning of the year, all the moves that they made. I was surprised that so many people were picking Chicago. I really thought Milwaukee was a much better team. Well, not much better. They were a better team, and they've been building the last few years, and a small market team who. They have that 2-3 year window, and the good small market teams who know what they're doing know that you got to take advantage of those 2-3 years. So, and I think that's exactly what they did in this offseason, and that's what they continue. I think that's what they'll continue to do. So, yeah. So we'll touch on the West just real briefly before we go into our break. But this is the closest division, top to bottom, 5.5 games separate Arizona down to San Diego. This division, I still feel like has not taken, in my opinion, it's not taken shape the way, the way I think it's going to go throughout the year. You got Arizona 2 games ahead of the Dodgers. And I mean, Arizona is a good team. I mean, they're playing great baseball this year. Dodgers, I think this is kind of another surprise division. I thought that the Dodgers would be better than 3-4 games over 500 at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the thing with the Dodgers is they had such a rough first month. They terrible. I mean, talking about firing their coach, and there was talk of firing the coach and everything. Mm-hmm. And they were just in the World Series last year. Like, come on. But the Dodgers, they're really good. They're probably gonna win that division. I think, at least. I think they've got the best team. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the Diamondbacks offense is so good. They just scored. I mean, not that this is saying much, but they just scored 26 runs over the last 3 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I mean, it's
Pirates won one.
They did. They managed to win Wednesday. I can't believe it. But yeah, I mean, they're a really good team, as well as the Rockies and the San Francisco Giants. I mean, the Padres, take what you want with them. But San Francisco, I think that they're an intriguing team too, because that lineup is really good. They just got Bumgarner back off the DL, but San Francisco, they've lost a few. So over the last week, that whole division was separated by a game just last week at this time. So yeah, it's starting to shape up a little bit. But I don't know how you feel about it, man. What do you think about the West?
Yeah, I thought the Dodgers would be not running away with this division, but I thought they would take it pretty easily. But Arizona, like we've been saying, they've been playing great baseball. Colorado, I think that I could see them kind of hanging around there for a little bit as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in this division. All the divisions, other than one or two, are really close at this point, getting closer to the All-Star break. So I feel like the All-Star break coming out of there is really when teams, it's just interesting that's like the unofficial halfway mark. It kind of that's when the good teams start to pick it up. That's when the bad teams start to, go in their place. So it'll be, again, interesting to see what's going on going up to the All-Star break. Stay with Jake and myself. When we come back, we're going to have a fun segment, our Father's Day edition of our Pointless Stupid Draft. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Cheap Seats. Matt Horn alongside Jake Holmes, here presented by Public House Media. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, the Cheap Seats, and get our daily poll question. Visit us at thephmedia.com. Make sure you also visit the store there to get some cool swag, especially for the Cheap Seats and all the other shows presented by Public House Media. Jake and I, as you know, we like to do just pointless stuff here, mainly because I don't know anything. So Jake follows alongside me just to make me feel better about myself. But we decided, because Father's Day coming up this weekend, which, before we start, happy Father's Day to you all out there, all of our fathers who are listeners. And in celebration for that, we are going to have the best father-son. We have one daughter-father set up here. Trios, duos. Some are trios, some are duos. When you have a talented family, you can obviously do the trios. Some even have, I think, quads. So, but the ones we have 11 here. Jake and myself will draft a team of 5, and the poll question will most likely end up being a snub, because we always like to snub family or something in our drafts, and then see what you all think out there. So, Jake, I will give you the honors to start our draft, our Father's Day 2018 father-son with one daughter father setup. Man, I'm really talking full here. Just make your pick, Jake.
Well, I think number one overall, you have to go with the Mannings. The first family of sports, Peyton, Eli, with their dad, Archie. Archie, of course, longtime quarterback of the Saints. Peyton Manning, we all know who Peyton and Eli are. 4 Super Bowls between the sons. Archie didn't win. However, of course, he's, famous at Ole Miss, of course, longtime New Orleans Saints quarterback. Eli, of course, took down the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, but Eli's had a sketchy career. I think Eli's a heck of a quarterback, but some people don't. Peyton, you could make the argument he's the best of all time. You could really make an argument for it. I mean, he, as far as overall talent's concerned, I mean, the guy could read defense like no one else. He just doesn't have a whole lot of rings compared to Tom Brady and Joe Montana. So number one overall, I'm going with the Mannings.
Great pick. I'm going to go over to baseball here with the second pick and pick the Griffeys. Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Sr. Obviously Jr. making it into the Hall of Fame. Both just great players in their time. The only father-son duo, and I mean, you got to think, Jake, to even make this happen, they homered back-to-back homers in a game. Like, first of all, that got to be great. I mean, the setting that the universe has to set up for that to happen is just, it's really, I can't even put words to it, but homering back-to-back in a Major League Baseball game, senior and junior doing that.
Yeah, no, I like the pick. I was actually going to take them if you didn't take them in number 2, but yeah, I thought that is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool stat that that they played on the same team together. I think that's pretty cool. And speaking of playing on the same team but at different times, I'm gonna pick Prince and Cecil, number 2. I'm gonna, Prince. Obviously, we know him for being, just as round as the baseball, big guy.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, Prince and Cecil. I think that it's pretty cool. You watch, the '84 Tigers were, a fantastic baseball team. Cecil Fielder, had Prince on the field, warming up and playing with them. So I think that's pretty cool looking back at that time. And ultimately he didn't finish his career with him, but he finished his effective career with the Detroit Tigers. Did Prince Fielder? So I'm going to pick the Fielders with number 2.
There you go. All right, so I'm going to take here with my second overall pick. I think is going to probably make Jake fall out of his seat because I think this is going to be a surprise one. But Jake, with my second pick, I'm going with the Earnhardts.
Nice.
I think I was a huge Dale Earnhardt fan. I have more Dale Earnhardt memorabilia than any person should have. It is currently sitting in a tote in our basement. But I mean, you have seven championships with Earnhardt. I think he had a little over 80 wins. Junior had 26 career wins, and really both of them combined just probably arguably, other than another family who didn't make it to our list, maybe this is a snub, is the Pettys, really together as father and son made NASCAR into the name that it is. So it'll be, like I said, I think it's interesting, the championships that they bring and the prestige that they brought to the sport. Unfortunately, Senior, I think would have probably put another championship on the board with 8 if it wasn't for him passing away at 49. But I'm going to take the Earnhardts as my second round pick.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that. What's crazy is I'm sure you're the same way. Is growing up, I watched NASCAR. It was something. I watched NASCAR with my dad, but like I was like 5 years old, and I remember when Dale Earnhardt died, and it was wild. I mean, everybody Daytona 500. My dad had a party every year, and just seeing everybody, everybody crying and everything. And then you saw on the TV, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was like running to the wreckage. It was. I was 5 years old, but I remember that just plain as day. That's a good pick, and I mean, it's just wild. I mean, but Dale Jr. I mean, great career to him too. I mean, he's broadcasting on NBC now. So, so number 3, I'm going to go with my favorite sport. I'm going to go with Brett and Bobby Hall. I go with them over the Howes just because I think the two of them had a better career than the two combines, you know what I mean? Yeah. Brett and Bobby were fantastic, of course. Brett might have been the best St. Louis Blue of all time, So there's them, and then Bobby Hall, longtime Chicago Blackhawk. I'm gonna go with them. One of hockey's first family, so of course them and the Stasnys, everybody knows those guys. So I'm gonna pick Brett and Bobby Hall, number 3 overall.
Okay. I'll stay in the hockey world and pick Marty Gordy and Mark Howe because, like you said, I feel like, I agree. Hall, I would pick Hall over Howes, but another family that just really helped form what hockey is today. Gordie Howe's known as Mr. Hockey, Hall of Famer, and that's a family who, again, like you said with the Halls, just really helped cement who NHL is today.
Yeah, and Gordie Howe, some people will disagree with me. He's my 3rd best player of all time. Mark doesn't make that list. But yeah, Gordie Howe, like you said, Mr. Hockey, he completely changed the game for his time. 3rd best player of all time, in my opinion. But yeah, good pick. I was going to pick them next if you didn't. But yeah. So number 4, I'm going to pick Muhammad and Layla. Muhammad and Layla Ali. I'm gonna be the one. And champions. A championship caliber family and championship caliber people. I don't think that enough people realize what they do outside of their ring. Outside of their playing surface, if you will, for what Muhammad Ali did, for social justice issues, and just being an overall good person. Muhammad and Layla, if we're talking about people, they should be higher on the list. But they're my number 4.
Yeah, great pick. I'm going to go with this is just a family that has always impressed me, and being living in the Green Bay area, I think everybody's going to be upset if I don't take them. But I'm just going to say the Matthews family. You have you obviously have Clay Matthews Jr., and then you have Clay Matthews III, and my name is Matthew, so that just makes sense. But no, you have all the Matthews. You have Jake Matthews, you have Mike Matthews, who has been in the NFL, and then obviously Clay. Just what a I think they have another brother, Kyle Matthews, I think. No, yeah, Kyle Matthews. I think he's in there too. Just
Casey Matthews.
Yes.
Yeah, there's Casey Matthews.
Yeah,
as well.
That's just impressive. It's to have a pedigree of that family. It's normally you see it's not a uncommon thing to see one son making it to the NFL, but when you have multiples, you're doing something right.
Amen to that. Yeah, Clay Matthews. Did you? I know that this is not a good time to bring this up, but did you see him get hit in the face with that softball?
Yeah, and he broke his nose. That's crazy. That's everybody.
Wild.
Everybody in Green Bay just went crazy. They're like, ah. But that was crazy to see that.
But yeah, Clay Matthews, and he's got one of the most distinct faces and celebrations. I love the pick. Clay Matthews. That whole family, very, very impressive. And they all come out of USC, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love family stories like that. Like everybody goes to the same college, and it just shows like the close knit, side of them. But finishing out my 5, I'm gonna pick Doc and Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers, of course, more of a college star, really, than he has been in the NBA. He's been a reliable piece off the bench in the NBA, but him at Duke, he was so good, and then of course he went to a team in which his dad coaches, which is pretty cool. And Doc, of course, he hasn't done much with the Clippers. However, I mean, those teams, the Celtics, late 2010s, when they were winning championships with really the first of this era of Big Three with Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce. They also had Rajon Rondo, if you wanted to include him in that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Doc Rivers has done a fantastic job in his entire career. I think that he's one of the best coaches that I've ever seen, and he's coaching his son. So, I mean, we always growing up in Little League. I mean, my dad was never my coach or anything, but it was always somebody's dad, that you were playing for. It's just pretty cool how that worked out at the professional level. You see it on ESPN on Wednesday nights, TNT on Thursday nights. You see these teams, a dad coaching a son. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, my last pick, I am going to go with, I think it's the only 3-generation on our list. But I'm going to have 2 racing families on mine, Jake. I know that's just crazy, but I'm going with Mario, Michael, and Marco Andretti. I mean, IndyCar royalty, I think you could say, with Mario and Michael. Marco, who's obviously still racing, but another family who really just, I think, not defines, but just really helped make IndyCar into who they are today. Just like the Earnhardt family in the in the NASCAR world. So our teams here are Jake has the Manning family, Fielders, Halls, Ali's, and Rivers. Myself is Manning. No, I'm sorry, Griffey, Earnhardt, Howe, Matthews, and Andretti. So. Some good families. I think if Jake, I don't know about you, but any of these families I think are to be blessed to have these father-son, father-daughter, father-son, grandson families. I mean, just very impressive.
I agree with you. All of them, and the thing is, we were talking off air, is that there's so many more. I mean, you could go into Barry and Bobby.
Yeah.
Also, if you want the Godfather in there, Willie Mays. I mean, there's so many good ones to choose from. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
How people can do this. But yeah, I mean. Yeah, it's awesome stuff, and that was a fun segment. I liked looking back in time a little bit.
Yeah,
I always like to.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So, again, happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. It's a blessing to be one. It's a privilege to be one. And Jake, one day you will make a great father. So, and I'm not just saying that, man. You will be. And I don't know if you want kids, but we already are one to Sydney. So
yeah. I mean, I think that I'm the best dog dad in the world.
Well, there you go.
I really do. So
yeah. So happy Father's Day to you as well.
Yes, happy Father's Day, man.
Thank you. So yeah, that was a fun segment, and when we come back here, you will get our bold predictions and also our poll questions. Stay with us here in the Cheap Seats. And welcome back to the Cheap Seats. Matt Coyne alongside Jake Holmes. Into our last segment of the show. Thanks for sticking around with us here, where Jake and I will give our bold predictions, which I think I am 1-72. I believe Jake is. What are you now, Jake?
I'm 1 for 4.
Nice. Hey, good job. Yeah. So I don't even know what I am. I just know I got I got one right back during March Madness, and it was impressive enough that I'm cool with it. So, but Jake, what is your bold prediction for this week?
Well, of course, the hockey guy's going to talk about hockey. This next week is a pretty big week for hockey. I mean, it's really the unofficial start of the offseason, of course, the NHL awards, but there's the NHL draft. The NHL draft, number one overall is all but guaranteed. He's a generational player out of Sweden, Rasmus Dahlin. He's going to go number one overall to Buffalo. However, there is some speculation with number two. The number 2 pick, what Carolina does with it. There's an obvious number 2 in Andrei Svechnikov. I'm going to say Carolina passes on Svechnikov and goes with Brady Tkachuk out of Boston College or Boston University. I'm going to say that the Carolina Hurricanes have got some good people in that organization, honestly, but they've done a lot of screwing up recently. I think that this is going to be the next chapter in that. They let Bill Peters go. Of course, he wanted to go, but they didn't do anything to stop him. The hire of Rod Brindamore, I'm not 100% sure about. They're looking like they're going to trade Jeff Skinner and Justin Falk. This is going to be the next screw up. They're going to pick Tkachuk over Svechnikov, number 2 overall in the NHL draft.
Great pick here. All right, so mine is going to be, I'm going to go into the World Cup. I'm all energized about it after this morning talking to Baxter. I'm going to say that Brazil will be upset. They will be upset in one of their first games. So Jake and I will see what happens here with our bold predictions. I'm sure we'll both be wrong like normal, but that's why we put bold in front of it, so that we can be idiots and be wrong and have an excuse. So poll question today. I changed my mind, Jake. As I was telling you what the poll question was going to be, I changed my mind on the poll question. This week's poll question will be, do you think LeBron James should go to the East or West?
Very
do you
nice.
think he should stay in the East or go over to a West team? We'll see what the outcome of that is. You can go on to Facebook, to our Cheap Seats page, and put your vote in. Like I think you heard it from Jake and myself. We both said, the question is, do you think he will stay in the East or go to the West? I think he'll stay in the East. I'd like to see him stay in the East. But it might be fun to switch it up, see if him going to the West. So
yeah, I agree. I hope he stays in the East too. I want to see him in the final. I don't want to see him lose in the Western Conference final.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it won't be the same without him in the final. So thank you for joining Jake and myself. Make sure you catch Christian and Jonathan on Monday. I will not be here next week, Jake. I will be on a mission trip, so make sure you join us next week. Jake will be here with a surprise co-host, and I will miss you, Jake, but I will be back the following week. So
yes, and have fun.
Thank you.
Fun next week. That's of course. I mean, this time of year, it's great opportunities for you guys and the kids. So
yeah.
Good luck with everything,
Thank
and of
you.
course, as always, appreciate the service that you guys do.
Hey, well, thank you. It's a privilege to do it, and I will again see you all back here in 2 weeks. Jake will see you here next week. Thank you for joining us. Special thank you to Baxter Colburn for joining us this morning to talk a little World Cup. Again, one final Happy Father's Day to you all. Jake, do you have any closing thoughts?
I mean, just big week in the NHL next week. The NHL draft and, of course, the awards. No surprises really in the awards. Taylor Hall's probably going to run away with a heart. But yeah, Happy Father's Day to everyone, to you and yours, and you all, of course, have a great weekend. And be safe on this Father's Day.
Yes. Well, thank you again for joining us. And one more time, remember to join on Monday with Jonathan and Christian, Keith and Max on Wednesdays. We will see you back here next week with Jake and a surprise host. Thank you for joining.